you did a little preview, a little Seahawks 2025 NFL offseason preview, and taking a look at a few different categories, the overview, key free agents, who's in, who's out, that kind of thing. One of the things I wanted to hit with you, though, you said key free agent needs, and the first thing is interior O-line, and you're not going to get any disagreement out here on that. But you said, why the holes? Seattle's had holes on the O-line for many years, and it's stunning how the franchise has been unable to fix the issues. I'm curious, we're locked into every moment of the Seahawks out here. How much different, how much worse are they than the rest of the league, in your opinion? It seems like everybody in the league, for the most part, maybe outside of the Lions and the Eagles, need O-line help. How much different are the Seahawks than the other teams in need?
Yeah, and that's true. There's a lot of teams out there that need a better offensive line play, have a few holes here or there. But just the persistence of the Seahawks in not figuring this out, it sets them apart a little bit, because it just does seem like it's been 10 years. When every single offseason, what's the question with the Seahawks? Oh, they got to fix the offensive line. And it's never really happened. Other teams kind of ebb and flow with it. Like, the line was good for 3-4 years. Now there's holes because this guy got hurt and this guy signed elsewhere and blah, blah, blah. It just seems with the Seahawks is just a never-ending story. So that's kind of the funny part about it. And they've tried different ways. They've brought in different O-line coaches and drafted a couple guys in the early rounds a couple years ago at tackle. And just everything they've tried has just been not good enough. And the bad part is they don't really have the cap space to really attack it, because again, as you pointed out, everybody has offensive line issues, except, again, the Lions don't, the Eagles don't, maybe a couple other teams. Everybody else is looking for offensive linemen. The good ones get snapped up really, really quick at a high price. So I don't know what they do. I don't know if this is a draft where Seahawks hit offensive line hard and try to fix it that way. They could. I mean, it's a pretty good draft for offensive linemen. But, yeah, it's just funny to me that, every year whenever I write any of these off-season preview type of deals, or if team needs, or even season preview stuff, I always mention, hey, the Seahawks still have a deficiency on the offensive line. It's never really changed that way.
Yeah, so what do you think about as far as the supply? Because we were talking about, certainly in the NFL, there's a demand for interior offensive line, just offensive line in general. But as far as the supply goes, do you think that will start to change, that there'll be more of a premium for, whether it's guys coming out of college or a guy deciding whether, if he's really athletic, he wants to be a defensive tackle or a guard? I mean, do you see it as a league-wide problem, and, just no good linemen coming out of the college ranks?
I think it's a little bit of a problem league-wide. Now, that ebbs and flows, too. I just think that it's kind of – you're going to have a few years stretch where there's a lot of good linemen in the draft. That kind of restocks the shelves. And, so that comes and goes a little bit. But overall, it's tougher because – and we've all talked about this – the fact that all these colleges are running the spread offense, that there's not a lot of pro-style offenses out there where linemen have to – block and schemes like they're going to see in the NFL. So it makes scouting a lot tougher. It makes the development a lot tougher. It means, you really have to start from scratch with a lot of these guys who, are brought in to play right away. And that doesn't always work out very well. So I do think it is an issue around the league, but there are years when you see more offensive linemen than usual. This being one of them in the draft, you are like, okay, these guys are going to be good players. That should help. But again, when you're talking about the math off the top of my head is going to be hard, but 180 starting offensive linemen-ish, 190, whatever it is, when you get 10 good linemen in the draft come in and are good starters right away, well, that still leaves 180 spots. Yeah, it's tough to fill all the holes. So I think that it is an issue with the NFL, and they're going to have to figure out how to develop these guys better when they're coming from a scheme that really doesn't mirror what they're doing in the NFL.
In your breakdown of the Seahawks offseason here, you've got, and I would recommend people check this out at yahoosports.com, because you got a bunch of different categories, good draft fit. This one I thought was interesting in what can move the fantasy football needle this offseason. Not that I'm interested in fantasy football, but your opening line. DK Metcalf appears to be leaving. That's a certain level of certainty to that statement. What makes you? We've been debating that here. Do you want to keep him? Should they trade him? Blah blah. But I haven't heard anything definitive in terms of that's their intention. Are you getting a different read out there?
Yeah, actually, that was we farmed that out. Our fantasy guys wrote that blurb in the preview, so I would have to defer to. I don't even know who wrote that one, to be honest. But I don't necessarily disagree. I don't have level of certainty like that, but you could see why the Seahawks would want to move on. I guess. I mean, DK is going to get a lot of money coming up really soon, and I look at DK as. I hate to say this because it's unfair to him, but almost like a little bit of a disappointment. I thought he was going to be surefire top 10 NFL receiver, and I'm not sure he's ever really been that. He's been very, very good. I mean, very good. But is he that top level, like, I mean, we're the main guys in the league we're talking about, the CeeDee Lamb type of Jamar Chase level guy? I don't think he's ever really become close to that, but he's going to want to get paid like that. And so I think you're kind of stuck if you're Seattle. Of, well, do we cash in now and try to get some value back because there's such desperation around the league for a guy at DK Metcalf's level that they're going to get pretty good draft capital back, but it hurts your offense in the short term. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I assume they're moving on from Tyler Lockett this offseason. If they do move on from DK Metcalf too, I mean, JSN's a really, really good receiver, but you need some help there. So I think it's just a little bit of a conundrum for the Seahawks. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they moved on. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they kept them either. So I just think that's something they're going to have to figure out internally. And I will say that if they did just say, okay, we're trading them, let's open up the bidding, there would be many, many teams ringing their phone up to see what the price would be to get DK Metcalf.
Hey, Frank, one of the kind of interesting free agents for the Seahawks, Ernest Jones, just because when he got here, it fixed the defense. I mean, seemingly, anyway. Yeah. I mean, it coincided with that event anyway. But, yeah, and it's kind of interesting. The reason why he was traded away is because I guess he made some noise in L.A. that he wanted more money. And then the Rams, for whatever reason, don't pay off the ball linebackers, apparently. So, but, yeah, what do you think about his value right now? I mean, do you think he's going to be tough for the Seahawks to try to re-sign?
I don't think so. I just think it was such a good fit for everybody involved. And, yeah, that's Ron's philosophy. And I think a lot of teams have that philosophy of not paying prime money for off-the-ball linebackers. But you did see clearly the impact Ernest Jones had in that defense. I mean, he just came in, and not only was it evident on the field right away, all of his teammates, coaches raving about him. You could tell that he really made an impact there. And I think Seattle values that, a franchise that, had Bobby Wagner for 11 years, whatever it was, a Hall of Fame career, great player there. I think that they do value that position, and they're going to do everything they can to pay him. And I don't think it's going to be that hard because, especially around the league, I think not everybody's like the Rams where they really, really devalue that position. But there's enough teams out there that don't want to pay top dollar for an off-ball linebacker that I don't think there's going to be a massive bidding war. So I think both sides can come to a deal where it seems fair for everybody, and I think Ernest Jones is going to be a great fit there for many, many years to come. We already saw him be a great fit there, so it's just and also when you're Ernest Jones, you might get a little bit better offer somewhere else, but you also have to sit there and say, I could be the Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, and Mike McDonald's offense that he really, really, or defense that he really, really values and likes, and I fit really well here in the culture. So I think it makes sense for Ernest to come back, even if he's not getting absolutely every single dollar he can out of it.
Hey, another story or another article you put out there on Yahoo Sports is the top 10 storylines. And number 3, you got Sam Darnold looks to cash in. And this is a fascinating topic for us out here because we feel like we've got a version of Sam Darnold in Geno Smith, a guy who was perceived to be one guy for the majority of his career until he got the start 3 years ago with the Seahawks after Russell left. And the view of him is different, not completely. He's kind of polarizing out here, but Darnold kind of had that 180 year until the last 2 games, and coincidentally the most consequential games of the season for him. So I'm wondering what you think the market will be for him. Are teams convinced that he's fixed, if you will, that he's not the Sam Darnold of old? He's the guy you saw for the majority of this past season? Or do you think those last 2 games may have put a scare into potential suitors out there?
I think to complicate things further, I think everything you said is true. That yes, he had a great 180 season, and he also really, really failed miserably in the last 2 games, and that will put some scares in the team. But at the same time, there's just desperation at quarterback around the NFL. I mean, if if you're turning your nose up at Sam Darnold, if you're one of these teams that needs a quarterback, desperately needs a quarterback, you're looking at starting Aiden O'Connell or, whoever the Browns would start in week one or whoever the Giants would start in week one. I mean, you're looking at that and saying Sam Darnold looks pretty good right now. And might it cost you, I don't know, $30, $40 million to get him in? Yeah, but you're if he's not the answer, he's somebody else's problem because you're going to get fired anyway, right? That's the kind of desperation these teams are in when you really need a quarterback. So I think Sam Darnold's going to get paid. He's going to get paid a lot of money this offseason. Even if we sit here and say, yes, I'm skeptical about his final few games, I think you look at it at the end of the day and you say, well, we got to roll the dice anyway because what are we going to do? Bring in Daniel Jones? That's what these teams are facing this offseason. So I think that, I think that he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid well, and I don't know how that's going to turn out. I think Sam Darnold was so good for the first 17 weeks of the season. He's legitimately a top 10 quarterback. I don't think anybody could argue with that. That team was 14-2. They were rolling. He was rolling. He looked like a confident guy. But, can he replicate that? Is the final two games really, like Cinderella hit midnight for him? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think NFL teams know the answer to that question. But I think they're going to gamble because what real choice do you have in this awful quarterback market this offseason?